On a clear October morning in 1929, a crew atop an unfinished New York skyscraper did something that looked insane. They shoved a giant steel needle, hidden inside the building for weeks, straight up through the roof, and in 90 silent minutes secretly made their tower the tallest thing humans had ever built. That tower was the Chrysler Building, born from one of the most ruthless rivalries in history. I wanted to show you exactly how it rose, so I used AI to rebuild the whole construction in color. This was New York at the absolute peak of the Roaring '20s, a city drunk on money, jazz, and steel, where architects were locked in a frenzy the newspapers called the race to the sky. For years, the record for the world's tallest building had belonged to the Woolworth Building at 792 feet. But by the late 1920s, a dozen developers were scheming to topple it because whoever built the tallest tower on Earth would own the most famous address in the world. And far across the ocean loomed the ultimate benchmark, the Eiffel Tower. The tallest structure humanity had ever raised, a record no building had ever come close to beating. One of those dreamers was Walter Chrysler, a self-made automobile tycoon who had clawed his way up from a teenage railroad mechanic to one of the richest men in America. He did not just want office space. He wanted a personal monument, a glittering spike of glory with his name on the skyline. And he paid for the entire thing out of his own pocket so that one day his children could inherit it. To design it, he turned to a bold, flamboyant architect named William Van Allen. But here's where the story turns vicious. Because the one man standing between Van Allen and the title was his own former business partner. And their feud was about to build a legend. The site was already in motion before Chrysler ever showed up. A developer named William Reynolds had hired Van Allen in 1928 to design a tower on the corner of Lexington Avenue and 42nd Street, right across from Grand Central. But Reynolds ran out of money, and in October of 1928, he sold the whole project, lease, and plans to Walter Chrysler for $2 million. Chrysler then gave Van Allen one electrifying order: scrap the safe design and make this the tallest building in the world. Van Allen happily tore up his blueprints and reimagined the tower as a soaring tribute to the machine age and the automobile, with steel eagles and gleaming hubcaps built right into its walls. He shaped it as a slender tower that would step back from the street as it climbed, squeezing every possible foot of height out of a single city block. But before any of it could rise, they first had to dig down and they had to clear the land. Groundbreaking came on the 19th of September 1928, and once the old building was torn away, crews began clawing out a foundation an astonishing 69 feet deep, blasting through solid Manhattan bedrock all through the winter. By January, the Great Pit was ready. An army of around 3,000 workers was assembled under contractor Fred Lay and engineers Squire and Sons, and the most frantic construction race the city had ever seen was finally about to begin. And Chrysler was not racing alone, because down on Wall Street, a rival tower was already clawing skyward at the very same time, in a duel that was about to turn deeply personal. On the 21st of January 1929, the steel began to rise, and it rose like nothing the world had ever seen. Working with brutal efficiency, riveting gangs flung the skeleton skyward at a staggering pace of 4 full floors every single week, a record-shattering speed for a building this size. To raise her, workers bolted together around 20,000 tons of steel, hammered home nearly 400,000 red-hot rivets, and laid almost 4 million bricks entirely by hand to wrap the frame. A curtain of brick that simply hung on the steel rather than holding the tower up. And in what many still call a miracle, even with men dancing across bare beams hundreds of feet above the street, not a single worker died building the Chrysler. Steel arrived from the mills and was often riveted into place within days of being forged, the entire site run with the ruthless precision of one of Chrysler's own assembly lines. As it climbed, the tower folded inward in dramatic steps, with great setbacks carved at the 16th, 23rd, and 30th floors that gave it its graceful, tapering shape. Inside, Van Allen installed 32 elevators in sleek banks, among the fastest in the entire world. But the higher it rose, the clearer it became that this was not just a building. It was a sculpture the size of a mountain, and Van Allen was only getting to the best part. Near the 31st floor, he ringed the corners with giant replicas of Chrysler radiator caps, and at the 61st floor, he sent 8 enormous steel eagles soaring out over the avenue, modeled on the hood ornaments of a 1929 Chrysler. Those eagles would later become the perch for one of the most famous photographs ever taken. A worker crouched fearlessly on a gargoyle 1,000 feet above the streets. Then came the crown, that unmistakable spray of 7 shining arches nested one inside the next and pierced with hundreds of triangular windows. He sheathed it in a brand new wonder metal called Nerasta stainless steel, the first time it had ever been used this way in America. A skin built to catch the sunlight and never tarnish. It looked less like a roof and more like a steel sunburst frozen against the sky. But that gorgeous crown was hiding a deadly secret. Across town, Van Allen's old partner H, Craig Severance, was frantically finishing his own skyscraper at 40 Wall Street, and he pushed it up to 927 feet, absolutely certain the crown was his. What he did not know was that inside the Chrysler's crown, built up in total secrecy from separate pieces inside a shaft in the building's core, stood a 120 5-foot steel spire weighing some 27 tons. On the 23rd of October 1929, with no warning at all, that spire was hoisted up through the very top of the building and riveted into place in roughly 90 minutes, vaulting the Chrysler to 1,046 feet. In a single morning, it had humiliated 40 Wall Street, surpassed even the Eiffel Tower, and become the first structure on Earth ever to break 1,000 feet. And then, just one day later, the stock market collapsed, and the glittering world that built this tower came crashing down around it. As the Great Depression spread its shadow across America, the finishing work pressed on regardless. When the doors finally opened on the 27th of May 1930, the Chrysler Building was officially the tallest in the world, and the inside was every bit as dazzling as the spire. Visitors stepped into a lobby glowing with deep red Moroccan marble, blue stone, and warm amber light beneath one of the largest ceiling murals on the planet, a sweeping work by artist Edward Trumbull called Transport and Human Endeavor. Even the elevator doors were masterpieces, paneled in inlaid woods gathered from around the world, with no two banks quite alike. Far above, the city's elite sipped cocktails in a secret members-only retreat called the Cloud Club, while tourists rode to a glass observation lounge near the very top to stare out over the entire city. And here is a strange truth. The building became the home of the Chrysler Corporation, yet the company never paid a cent for it and never owned it, because this tower was Walter Chrysler's personal trophy from the start. And even half empty in the depths of the Depression, the building left everyone who saw it breathless. But the genius who dreamed it all up received a brutal reward. Walter Chrysler refused to pay Van Allen his full fee and publicly accused him of taking secret kickbacks from the contractors. Van Allen was forced to sue just to be paid. And although he eventually won in court, his name was tarnished, his commissions dried up, and the architect of the most beautiful skyscraper on Earth slowly faded into obscurity. And the cruelest twist of all was already rising just a few blocks away. Because the Chrysler Building's reign as the world's tallest lasted under a year. In the spring of 1931, the Empire State Building seized the crown, and the tower that had schemed so hard to win the title lost it overnight. But here is the beautiful part. The Chrysler never needed the record. With its shimmering steel crown and its wild, glorious ambition, it became what many people call the most gorgeous skyscraper ever built. A frozen lightning bolt of the Jazz Age. Van Allen was forgotten, but his masterpiece never will be. subscribe, and tell me which landmark to raise next.